Kia ora, Lara here, also known as Scrappykea on various social medias. Today I am joining in on the hop with Stamp It Like It's Hot, and our focus this month is to use or to colour in our stamps. So you'll see some colouring in a little bit later on. To start with, I'm just going to prepare the background, and this was sort of a stencil I made some time ago on my Cricut, just using some of the plus signs. And I am using here the Bubble Bath ink by Stampin Up, and I'm just generally blending it through the different plus signs. I've sort of placed where the photos are going to sit, so I won't do all of them. I'm just going to have a few peeking out underneath and the rest sort of poking up the top. So I'm just sort of dabbing it in the ink pad here just to make sure I've got some really good colour. Hey, check the playlist for other people joining in on this hop. So you'll see lots of different ways that people are colouring in their stamps, and each month we sort of have a different feature or a different thing that we do with our stamps. So I'm sort of looking at these plus signs here and thinking, okay, so what next? And I decide I'm going to stitch around them. The photos that I'm pulling in involve some knitting and a cup of tea, a herbal tea in a cool cup with whānau written on it. And so I sort of felt that the stitching was kind of an appropriate vibe alongside all of the knitting. So I'm just using this handy tool here to poke some holes where I will go back and do some stitching in. So I decided before I do the stitching and the rest of the holes that it might be a good idea to finish backing my photos. So I've used a collection, the black spotty and the black sort of those other bits there, which is Zoo Crew by Stampin' Up. And I'm also going to use one of, which is now a Stampin' Up collection, and it is a rather gorgeous collection with lots of cool florals and different patterns like that. And I'm just trying to find the name of it. Looking in the bag of papers as I do this voiceover. It's called Secret Garden, and at the moment it's only available through X Close to My Heart makers who are able to supply it through Stampin' Up. So if you had a Close to My Heart account and you were able to log in with this or use this with a Stampin' Up demonstrator, you can access this collection. It may be available to everyone soon. I am not sure how that all works. Anyway, I have used sort of that bluey paper in the background from that section, and I have used a stamp here of the lady sort of sitting with her back up against a wall, perhaps looking out the window with a cup of tea, and just going with that whole relax kind of vibe of the photos. Sort of I'm what you would call an active relaxer, and so I'm not very good at just sitting and doing nothing, hence I felt that I would pull in that picture just sort of the crochet basket that's sitting there and tie that in with sort of a nice cup of tea, just showing that whole relaxed atmosphere. So a couple of weeks ago I spent the term break at my parents' beach house looking after their cats, and it was just a really nice week, or a week or two, just having some downtime. So the stamp set that I've used is called In the Moment, and that is where that stamp set is from. So now I'm going to go back through and I'm going to poke all of these holes in, just around each of these signs, before I'm going to go through and add some stitching. So I hope that you will check this playlist, and there are also links below of people who are joining in on the hops and some Instagram links too. Check the playlist for other ideas and different ways that people are colouring in their stamps. So I'm going to colour in that the picture of the lady sitting looking out the window, the In the Moment stamp, and so I'm going to be using some of the Stampin' Blend, I think they're called Stampin' Blends colours, and they sort of tie in quite nicely with the papers and things that I've chosen. They are dual colours, so you buy them in a set of two, so you've got a darker and a lighter, and you can blend them together just to do some quite nice colouring in. I didn't use them in this case, but in a layout I was making later on. So I was putting this together at a crop day in Invercargill. So I sort of snuck in my my tripod and things, and a little bit of extra lighting that you can see coming in from the left there to put this all together. So there might be a bit of a flicker in the background. I'm sort of not sure how that's all working, but I decided I'm going to use the bright pink threads here, some just embroidery floss to go around those. But yeah, so check the links for different ways different people have coloured things in. I use some watercolour pencils later on for colouring in some stamps. You could just blend some ink over them as a way of colouring in sort of a general bold area. There's probably heaps of different ways you could colour in, even water paints or acrylics or anything you could pull in. So the important thing is probably to choose your ink quite nicely. So making sure that you've got like a memento or an intense black that's not really going to bleed. So you have to let the inks dry a little bit sometimes or set into the paper so that they don't bring the colour through. So here I am using, I think this might be boho blue. So the dark and the light boho blue for the jeans. I just felt that had that nice denim-y coloured look. And so I went around some of the sort of lines on the stamp with the darker colour, and then I'm just using the lighter colour to generally blend over it all to pull that all in. So for the top, I decided to pull in the pretty, and or it might be bubble bath actually, similar to what I had used for the stamp for the plus sign inks. So I wanted a similar colour coming through, and also to match the colour in the wool bag that's there. Now the wool bag with the crochet hooks is kind of special as well. It used to be my auntie's, passed away a while ago, and so it's quite nice to be able to use little things that belong to other people that have special meaning. So it's sort of a wool bag that I've used lovingly since I was given the use of it. So I'm carrying on with the colouring, and I think this might be Pool Party or one of the lagoon colours, and this one here I believe is the Lost Lagoon, is sort of that greeny blue colour there, just the colour in the bottom cushion or the bits and pieces that she's sitting down on. I do play around with the idea of colouring in those window brackets or the lines behind the windows, but I decide not to. And I then think, right, I need to choose some skin colours, and the colour I started with was a little bit darker than I thought it was going to be, so I then sort of played around with some different colour samples and found one that is lighter, and I end up using that for the rest of it. And I decide to use the slate grey for the hair. I am getting older, so my hair is getting greyer, so I picked that colour and just one of the pinks for the little hair tie that's in there. Found that lighter colour, so now I can colour in the skin and just sort of blends in that slightly darker colour. The use of the alcohol markers does make it easier to blend my colouring in a bit better. I am noticing some flickering in the video there in the background, so many apologies if you are seeing that too. Hopefully it's just on my end, but I think it was the lighting in the room that I was putting these together. Now I'm just going to use some of the foam alpha. This is something that I have in my sort of collection from close to my heart, and I'm just going to title it Relax. I am not putting these in a nice straight line. I decide to purposefully make these sort of a little bit haphazard, in the sense that when I put my journaling on a little bit later, I mentioned the idea of being an active relaxer rather than it being something that's all sort of neat and tidy and just sitting there doing nothing. Some people read a book, some people watch TV, and I guess I was sort of watching TV as well as working on my crochet and enjoying lovely cups of tea and things. I did relax by going for some beach walks and doing some card making and different scrapbooking things over the week as well. But these two things sort of symbolise that real downtime and relaxing. So now I'm going to have a look at the stickers that came as part of that paper collection. And they sort of have these gorgeous blues and pinks and yellows and things. So I just pulled off this journaling sticker from the Secret Garden sticker sheet, and am just adding some journaling in there. just writing a general note about the idea of relaxing and what that meant to me. So next up, I am going to pull out some more stamps. I felt like they just sort of needed a little bit in that bottom under the stamp that I've got the lady sitting there, and also felt that then to tie that in I needed to bring those florals up to the top because there's no real other florals in it up till this point. So I'm using the Memento ink to stamp that down, and I'm going to pop it down the bottom, put one there, and I'm also going to put one up sort of between those plus signs leading out to the side, just sort of changing that angle and direction of those a little bit. Now I do need to let these dry a wee bit before I go into colouring, and I probably should have let them dry a little bit longer, just there did seem to be a little bit of bleeding. But I'm going to play in, I think this is Daffodil Delight, and so I'm pulling that one in, and just colouring in some of these big flowers with the lighter and the darker of those to sort of give a little bit more dimension and depth. When you are using the darker and lighter and doing the blending, you do have to do it reasonably quickly, because if the ink dries, you don't have that blending ability to move them from one spot into the other. And they don't, when I say one spot to the other, you don't sort of have that graduated blending. It becomes sort of lines separate from them. So I'm colouring in both flower sets at the same time and keeping it fairly uniform. Stamps, when you colour them, are actually kind of cool in that you do get to choose what colours you put in. So when you buy some ephemera or a sticker sheet or something like that, it's pretty much set. You don't really get the choice of the colours of things. But what's beautiful about stamps and colouring them in, even though it's not something lots of us do a lot of the time, is we get to choose the colours. So I was also able to bring in the Highland Heather, and I was going to colour in these whole little flowers, and I started by using the dark and I was going to put the light around the outside edge, but I decided that actually I quite liked them white with just that little bit of a purple centre. So I'm now using one of my favourite colours, which is, I think it's called Seafoam. I should know the name of it, in the sense that I do love it so much. Soft Seafoam. So I have to add that little bit there. And I'm colouring in some of these leaves in that, and then I am going to use the Granny Apple Green as the other leaves that are poking out from this little image. So I am just going to finish that colouring off. What I do also is I do add some acrylic dots, and you'll probably see that in the videos at the end once I've finished colouring all of these in. I do add a few more things, and quite happy with how this turned out. Loving these sort of turquoisey, the blues and the pinks, and then bringing in the yellow and the lavender, I think just really helped to pull all of this together. And I think that colouring in stamps is something I'd need to do a bit more often in my layouts. As I said before, it just does really give that versatility with the colours that we choose, and how that all comes together, and how you can match it to your photos or to the other things that are going on, rather than it being colours that are chosen for you. So here's just some close-ups of this layout. Please check the rest of the playlist for other people joining in on this hop, and to find out other cool ways to use your stamp. Hey, thanks heaps for watching.